Hello and welcome to a live Kerfefe break with Keri Smith on Deprogrammed. I'm sorry that we're late today. There was a mistake. My guest thought that the show was tomorrow. So we're going to have Sarah Higdon on, but we're not going to have her on until Friday. And I apologize. I apologize for the mistake. I think Mike Harlow is going to be also joining us on Friday, and maybe a couple of other people. Maybe we'll just have a party then. So since you guys are in the chat, I figured, okay, I'll just go live. But I want you to know, I don't like talking just to the camera. I don't know if you've noticed, but I never do shows like that. I always have a guest. It makes me feel weird. So I'm gonna imagine that I can see you all and that you're all talking to me. So this is not as strange. Anyway, there are a couple of things I did want to talk about today. So I guess I could just try it by myself and see how that goes. So that I think I did tell you in the chat. It's our air conditioning has been out since Friday. So it's very hot here. And if you're in Texas, you know what I mean. And I'm just powering through it. Yeah. Thank you, Trinakos. Yeah, I got my Friday Night Tights hat. Somebody was like, "Are you still wearing a hat in the heat?" I am, because I need something to catch the sweat. So we're just trucking on. We have a lot of, yeah, Laura says, "Oh my goodness." I know we've had a lot of thunderstorms, and apparently the lightning took out our control panel. So we're just waiting on a new one to come in. So we got all the fans going, and it's just a lot of stuff. I guess since I don't have a guest, I could talk about some more frivolous things before I get to yeah, sure. Okay. Is the art behind you your creations? No. The art behind me, since this house is in disarray and we're constantly fixing it up, I can even maybe show you some of the mess all around me where you can't see. It's just construction. There's boards, this wall's torn down, sawdust everywhere. So what I did was, since the wallpaper is half peeled off, I just put a bunch of art back there until we have time to get more sorted. And yesterday, one of my friends at church told me very good advice. I know it was very well intentioned. He said, your background's too cluttered. You need to fix that. I know. I just we're in this temporary stage. I guess I could come up with something else more professional looking until we get the studio finished. But eventually this room is going to be more like a studio, and this won't be so cluttered behind me. Anyway, to answer your question, this art, oh no, something fell. This art is by my friend Julia Mann, and you can find her on Instagram. I don't know if you guys can see that. This is her original of the Golden Girls. And yeah, see, look at all the sawdust. That's like every day coming through. Anyway, she does color pencils, and she often sells her work at Comic-Cons. And I got to hang out with her in her booth at Fan Expo in Dallas this year. That's where I got to hang out with the Friday Night Tights guys and get this hat. And she does all kinds of nostalgic 80s and 90s characters, and even some current characters. She's done the Cobra Kai guys. So Yoda, Baby Yoda, all that stuff. Let's see what fell down here. I'll show you what else is here. This is, oh yeah, just a picture of me and my husband. This is a Dolly Parton book that my friend Nicole gave me. And then I won't waste too much time with all this stuff, but here, this is a cross stitch from Cheeky Mare, Not Today Joy Eater. That will actually, once this room's fixed, that will hang on the deprogrammed wall. I love that piece. And then this Mary I just got, that's from one of my favorite vintage shops, antique shops in Taylor, Texas. And it's called Our Mother of Perpetual Hope. And it was a great price. And I love the colors on that. It's very Christmas colors. So, okay, everybody thought they're going to tune in for the news. If you're just tuning in, my guest thought the show was tomorrow. That's my fault, because I messaged her really late in the day last night. And so it's just me. So I will, if you guys have other suggestions or things you want me to talk about, otherwise I'll just cover some of the stuff I'm looking at. Progressor, are you one of those people that needs clutter to think? No, actually, clutter makes it hard for me to think. And so this place being what it is and moving things around constantly so we can work on different rooms has made it really hard. Anybody who's lived in a construction zone, they might know what I'm talking about. There's this low grade anxiety in the background a lot of the time that my husband and I have noticed, because you are visually constantly aware of everything that has to be done. If we were living somewhere else while fixing up the house, that would be one thing. But when you're living in it, I don't think I realized at the beginning how much you're kind of like you see it all the time. And I'm going to be very happy when we have just one room that's finished from top to bottom. That'll be I'm just going to be spending all my time in that room. So the first room that's supposed to be finished from top to bottom is the guest bathroom. And, it's not just me and my husband in this house. I have a friend who lives with me full time, another friend who's here half the time. So we're all going to be using that like bathroom. I can't wait till it's done though. We have just started on the tiling, and my husband and his friend David did all the floor tiling, and now they've got to do like the grout the bathroom, sheetrock the walls, all that stuff. But once that room's done, the second room we're doing is my husband's music studio, so he can record. And a lot of his work has been put on hold until we finish that studio. So that's the second room, and that's the one that the wall is missing between our two rooms currently. And then our third room will probably be the kitchen, and then this room. But we will get to this room. So yeah, there we go. Speaking of my husband, if you guys are in, I don't know if anybody listens to Deprogrammed in Switzerland, Germany, or Amsterdam, but if you do, my husband's band is going to be playing there the next 2 weeks. He's flying out tomorrow, and I've got a list of shows. I'll put it up on I'll just put it up on the YouTube community page just in case. And if you guys want to go see him perform, I am biased, but he's amazing. His band's amazing. His fiddle player, I love drummer, bass, all of it. You're going to love this band. So I'm going to be out there. I'm not going the whole time. I'll be out there like the last week. But if you're in any of those places, Switzerland, Germany, or Amsterdam, send me a message and let me know, or just come say hi, because that would be nice. I don't know how often. I've never been to Switzerland or Germany. So I'm very excited, and I don't know when or if I'll ever get to go back. So come say hi this time. Let's see. This is a serious question. Did you do anything really mean that you regret when you were in SJW? I never participated in the pile-ons that I recall. I did watch people pile on feminists like Megan Murphy. I've mentioned this before, and I stayed quiet. I was a coward. I thought what they were doing was wrong, but I was too afraid to say anything. A lot of the feminists I knew, the more in the social justice feminist world, she and I knew some people in common. I was on the board of several feminist nonprofits, and I watched some of these feminist social justice leaders go after her for simply talking about, biological sex, and they called her a TERF and stuff pretty early. She was one of the first voices I heard speaking against gender ideology, and I cowardly kept my mouth shut and didn't say anything at the time. So Laura says, you've talked about family members you were, quote, mean to. I don't know if I was so much mean to them. I guess so, yeah. My aunt and I for a long time, that's true. We had a contentious relationship because she was a Baptist, Southern Baptist, and very right wing. And when I entered college, so like my late teens, early 20s, she would send me a lot of letters that were pretty much like, actually, my aunt is hilarious. I should show these letters sometime. I have a Valentine's Day card from her. I mean, her letters would sort of be like, "Dear Keri, happy Valentine's Day. I hope that you turn away from your dark ways so that you don't burn in hell for eternity. Love." That would be her name. But she was totally serious. I have one from her that was like, uh, "Dear Keri, I heard that you're sick, but you don't want to go to the doctor because you're stubborn. Your great grandma was stubborn, and when a wagon wheel fell on her foot, and then she got an infection and wouldn't go to the hospital, and then she died. Happy Valentine's Day." Like, these are these are her cards. In retrospect, they're hilarious. But Jewel Jewel says, "Well, at least it's honest." Yeah, she's still like that. It's funny. We have a much better relationship now. We used to go back and forth though. I would tell her how she was a bigot and part of white supremacist patriarchal culture, and really just give her the social justice gospel, and then she would come back with the Christian gospel, but in this very, you know, very judgmental way. And we have a much better relationship, but she's still like that, and she cracks me up. I got these two old 1940s chalkware lamps. They're gorgeous. They're like this tall. It's when they used to make those lamps with different characters. So it's a man and a woman on kind of against a tree, like a beach, like a Hawaiian kind of lamp. You guys know I hope you know what I'm talking about. Look up chalkware lamps from the 40s. Anyway, I got two of these, and they match perfectly with my grandparents. This is my aunt's parents. My grandparents' first bedroom suite, which is a waterfall Art Deco suite from the 1940s. And so they go great with that. And when I brought these lamps home, I took a picture of them with the bed and the bedroom suite. I'm like, I love these lamps I just got, put it on social media, and a lot of people are saying, "Oh, great lamps." And my aunt's like, "I don't like them." Like, that's just who she is. So, um, she also said, I'll tell you one more funny story with my aunt. Since today's just a silly day. If you're tuning in, this is not usually what we do on Mondays. We usually have a guest. We talk about the news. My guest is not here today. We're gonna talk with her on Friday, Sarah Higdon. Apologies for that. Anyway, we're just telling stories, I guess. When my husband and I were on I say vacation, but we were on, he was traveling for some shows, and I got to go with him. And this was last year, and he he took a photo. He thought it was a really great photo of his bedside drawer in the hotel, because they had the Bible there like they do in a lot of hotels. There was a Bible, and then his gun was next to it, and then like his money purse thing. And it was a great picture. Like it would be like an album cover photo. And he posted that, and my aunt said, and I have to say it in her accent, my aunt said in the comments, "Congratulations, now they know where to find money and a gun." And we're like, I said, "What about the Bible? There's the Bibles there too. They don't want the Bible?" Anyway, um, if you have another question, hey y'all, let's pressure her to pick the next book for book club. Okay, we could do that, Amy. I know which book I want to read. Is it up to me? Because if it's up to me, I want to read Political Ponerology. And I hope that you guys are interested in this book. I know it's another nonfiction, but I can't wait to get to it. And if we pick a different book, I know I'm just going to be dipping into this one. So why don't we just do this one next? It's Political Ponerology was recommended to me by Nina Infinity and the Dangerous Rhetoric guys, who I have on Kerfefe Break quite a bit, Daniel and Brentley. And they actually gave me a copy. So I have a copy that I can read. And I would really love to do that one. So it's called Ponerology, Surly Unicorn, Political Ponerology. And I might have a copy of it here. I do. This is the copy they gave me. So it's by Andrew Lobaseski. I can't say that. This new version has a foreword by Dr. Michael Rechtenwald, who, if you guys haven't seen that episode, I got to interview Michael Rechtenwald for Deprogrammed. he's brilliant. He helped me understand social justice working with corporations in a way that I hadn't been able to really figure out before. So if you haven't seen that interview, maybe Amy or someone can drop that link in the chat. Dr. Michael Rechtenwald. So he did the foreword to Political Ponerology. It's basically it's called The Science of Evil. I think this has so much to do with what we see going on in the world around us right now. The science of evil, psychopathy, and the origins of totalitarianism. So every time the kind of stuff I usually gravitate towards talking about on the show, I don't know if you've noticed, but sometimes it leaves I can't really stay on current events for long without my mind drifting to, I guess, bigger picture things. That's a way to put it. And the science of evil, I guess, is something you could say I'm interested in. And that's probably why many people recommended this book to me. Outside of what we do on Deprogrammed, I mean, if you guys knew, I don't listen to a lot of podcasts anymore right now. Like, I kind of go through stages. I still watch Friday Night Tights pretty much every Friday because those guys are fun. But otherwise, I've been in my true crime phase, another true crime phase for quite a while. That's most of the podcasts I listen to. And I don't know why I'm so interested in my old ideology woke, and I'm interested in true crime. I think it's because in both instances, you're trying to figure out how it is that people can be pushed to do evil. And so that's why I would love to do this book, Political Ponerology. If you guys are interested in that one, then feel free to join the book club. We have a Facebook group. On Facebook, you can find the Deprogrammed Book Club. And then on Locals, I think it's kerismith.locals.com. We'll be announcing when the date of that book is. And we do them privately now rather than do them on YouTube. We kind of wanted to have something just for supporters. And if you support the show, I think even at the $1 level a month, we figured book club would be something good to do. Plus, if we want to, we can talk about whatever we want to because it's not being aired publicly. So the first book we did was the Fauci book, and there's no way we could have put that on YouTube anyway. They would have taken that down. So I think also it makes people feel probably a little more comfortable about just being themselves and joining on the video chat because they know it's not going out to everyone. It's just going out to the Locals members. So anyway, yeah, Political Ponerology. We'll do that one. Okay. Let's see. Are there any more questions? If not, I'll show you one of the things. Kerfefe break unplugged. Yes. So you have no idea, Surly Unicorn. If this were just left to me and it weren't interesting conversations with interesting people, it would be, I mean, this whole show would be talking about antiques and boots, and we would probably play some Hank Williams Sr. and get banned for playing copyrighted music. Like, there are so many times when I'm reading about crazy stuff going on in the world, and you're kind of going back and forth between, you don't want to be too much in the world because then you get it. I mean, it just turns you negative. Then you become no different than a social justice warrior if you're just every day reading all this outrage and just internalizing it and being outraged. And so I'll go back and forth between being in the world and then like being like in the world, like around, like actually in the world with stuff I enjoy. And so there's so many times where I wish I could just post music with a post. Like, I wish Facebook had that option to add a song so people could hear, like, just get into a mood. Yesterday I was listening to Hank Williams, Move Over Little Doggy. That song, Move Over Little Doggy, because the big dog's moving in. I mean, there's no way you can hear that kind of music and not just get in a good mood, no matter the crazy stuff that's happening in the world. So anyway, Zato says, it sounds like your aunt would make a good guest. You have no idea. You have no idea. I will say something about my aunt. Again, she is just says whatever she thinks and can be very abrasive and judgmental. But I love her to death, and she prayed for me for 20 years while I was in the social justice world. And I actually, when I stayed at her house a few years ago, in the guest bedroom, I opened the closet to put my stuff in there, and there were Post-it notes all over the closet, and it was different people's names, and there was one for me, and underneath it there were like individual Post-it notes, like different prayers that she had for me. And I realized that that was her prayer closet, and it just was like, wow, like she has always been very sincere in her beliefs, whatever her faults might be, just like any, any sincere human. So um, makes me a little emotional still to think about that. But yeah, she's a hoot. If you guys were to meet her, oh my goodness. My husband, when he met her, we stayed there, and I got up in the morning, and I went to get coffee because I did not want to drink her coffee. and and my husband said he woke up, and her husband, my uncle, was like, "Where's Keri?" And she was like, "Well, she went to get coffee because she thought it would be better that way." that's that's the way she talks. It's very deadpan. So, uh, how does she feel now that you are a Christian? Vindicated? I don't know if vindicated is the right word. She's when I first started, I'll say this, if you're a Christian, this is something that I think was she she could have been possibly a stumbling block, but she wasn't. But I'm just saying this in case you are the type to be a stumbling block. When I first God started like pulling me, the first church I started going to was not an explicitly Christian church, I guess. It was called Agape. It's a huge international spiritual center in Los Angeles. The pastor there is Michael Bernard Beckwith, and it's sort of mindfulness and New Age and Christianity, and they bring in a lot of different religious beliefs. And but it's sort of grounded in Christianity. It's hard to explain. You can watch all of their streams online if you want to get a sense for the place I used to go. They call them love streams, and they have great music. And anyway, that's the only place I would have gone at that time. I never would have gone to the church that I go to now. I would have I had too many prejudices, and I had been too inoculated against Christianity. So at the time when I first started going to that church, I shared with her that I was going there, and she was really negative. So I just say this as a warning, like it wasn't actually a stumbling block for me, but it might have been for someone. It's sort of like it wasn't good enough until I was going to like her exact kind of, I don't know, just something that she thought was the exact kind of church. And she certainly, I can understand why now. I understand now why she had criticisms of that mindfulness, consciousness raising kind of all different belief systems. I understand why she had those criticisms, but I would give the advice I would give to fellow Christians would be just try to be not so controlling in when you're watching someone on a path towards figuring out truth or finding God, or whatever however you want to describe that path, is not to tell them like you must do things this way, is to be more open and loving as you watch them stumble. I don't mean don't offer your opinion. It's just, yeah, she was really negative about that one. I think she's pretty happy with where I go to church now. And she did come out for my wedding, and she met my pastor. And I was like, this is my aunt. This is my aunt who prayed for me for 2 decades, right? And that was really a nice privilege to get to introduce them. So Zato says, I understand my grandma disapproves of my church. I would think she'd be happy I'm going at all, but no. Yeah, that's kind of what it was. I thought the same. I thought, wait, wouldn't you're not happy that I'm going at all? And like we're worshiping God and talking about God and trying to find God. And no, she wasn't. She didn't think it was the right one. Just because you go to church doesn't make you a good person. Personal responsibility every day. Oh, absolutely. Just because you do any behavior doesn't, like, it's more about how you try to live every day. I mean, I know that's what you're saying. I'm just rephrasing it in a different way. There are people, this is something I posted, I was thinking about over the weekend. There are also con artists in every belief system. And I think sometimes we act surprised, or not act surprised, but we are surprised to find them in our tribe or in our belief system, but they're everywhere. I've seen them now in Christianity, woke, anti-woke. Those are just the ones I've been in. So I'm sure they're in Judaism, Islam. I don't know. I'm sure they're in every. If you find a group of people who believe in something, a group of believers, you will find wolves amongst the flock. I think that's what happens. I think that's human nature. Is Yeah, Trinoculus P says sociopaths love religions. Yes, they do. They love other people's deeply held convictions. I just watched this documentary series about Warren Jeffs, who is in prison now. Let me look him up. I'll tell you about this guy. This was fascinating to watch. I didn't know enough about it. Okay. So Warren Jeffs is an American religious leader and convicted child rapist. He's the president of the Fundamentalist Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, a polygamous denomination of the Latter-day Saint movement. In 2011, he was convicted of 2 felony counts of child sexual assault, for which he is serving a life sentence plus 20 years. If you haven't seen it, there's a documentary series out about him right now. I think it's called Keep Sweet. It's called Keep Sweet, Pray and Obey, and it's on Netflix. It's a great look. I enjoy watching cult documentaries. Again, true crime, cult stuff. I think it's all the same drive there of trying to understand how humans go down that path of just becoming thoroughly dominated by and animated by evil. And that story is so fascinating because when he took over, when his dad died, when Warren Jeff's dad died, and his dad was the prophet, was known as the prophet in their particular polygamous sect. His dad was not that extreme by those standards, by the standards of a polygamous group of people. But this guy, Warren Jeffs, manipulated and maneuvered his way into. Now, they believed that when the prophet, first of all, they didn't believe the prophet could ever die. So when this guy died and they held the funeral, there were people in the church who said, we thought he was going to rise up. Like, there were women who were like, wait, why are they covering the casket with dirt? Like, he's going to come back up. Like, they didn't believe the prophet could die. Well, he died. And then after he died, this son of his, Warren Jeffs, started manipulating people, maneuvering to get into the position of prophet, started changing the way they thought about the prophet, started talking to his father's many wives and saying, who do you think the next prophet should be? And getting these women on board with it being him. And so much so that he convinced some of them that he was his father, that his father was now occupying his body. And he ended up marrying most of his father's wives. And as he took over that particular sect of FLDS, he became more and more tyrannical and authoritarian, to where he would send in men to remove family members. If there were any men in the community who he got a sense for, that guy's a strong guy, like that guy's smart and he's too strong and he could at some point put his foot down about what I'm doing, he banished those men from the community, separated them from their wives and kids, and slowly just gained more and more control over these people and got them to move from place to place and changed the way that they dressed, became so controlling, told them they couldn't wear certain colors, they couldn't wear the color red. I think you guys might have remembered when these people were on the news back when this story broke and he was prosecuted. some of the women were interviewed, and they all wore pastels like prairie dresses, and they all had the big hair, and they spoke. Now, this is after having been under the thumb of a cult leader and a sociopath for a long time. They spoke like robots. I'm going to see if I can show you this clip. This one is just fascinating. Let's see. Does anybody in the chat remember these women being interviewed? They did, because what happened is they had moved to a third place. They got a ranch in Texas. And in this compound, they had started, Warren Jeffs had started moving a lot of the kids into the compound without their parents, like taking them in the night and saying, well, they get to go to Zion. They called it Zion. And what he was doing was marrying younger and younger women. So he had like 12 and 13-year-old brides, and he built this temple there in the Texas compound, where they later found he had this ceremonial bed where he would bring in his new young 12 or 13-year-old bride and have sex with her, with some of the other wives there, like coaching her through it. He recorded these sessions. He called them like some kind of spiritual session or something with this. It's disgusting, the stuff he did in that compound. Anyway, at some point, the feds raided the compound because they got a call from someone who said that they were a young, pregnant, 16-year-old wife in this polygamous sect, and that they were being abused. Now, it turns out that call was from someone who didn't even live there. But they went in and they found that a lot of this stuff was happening. And so, excuse me, what they did at first is they removed all the children and took the children out of the compound until they could figure out what to do. And when they did this, Warren Jeffs like fired up the press machine, and they had all these moms go out and do this tearful pity like campaign of, the government took our children away. And so they ended up returning all the kids to the compound because of this press tour. But this, I'm going to show you guys this clip. This is one of the most disturbing of all the press clips that I saw. Let's see. Can you guys see that? Oh, there we go. Okay. So see how they all dress the same? He banned certain colors. They all had to have, they even had instructions on their braids, like how they had to do their braids a specific way. He was so controlling. And these are three of the women. I believe all three of these were his wives. I'm not sure. Anyway, we're going to play this.
Nancy, Marie, and Esther, thank you very much for joining us this morning. I know it's a very important day for you all and everyone there tomorrow, with all the children being in court. Do you plan on being in court tomorrow morning?
Yes.
And what is your hope for tomorrow, Nancy?
To get our children.
Do you understand the allegations that authorities there got a call from a young woman who said that she was being sexually abused by her husband? Have you seen that taking place? Underage girls being forced to have sex, being forced to be married to older men there. Marie, do you know of that?
No, I do not.
Look at that smile.
Esther?
We were taken without any explanation. We were taken at gunpoint, and there's just no papers served. It's just like we're animals herded into this, and our children are taken away. And a story that we're not even allowed to hear. They won't give us a recording, listen to it or anything. And it's of a person that does not exist.
So you believe this person who allegedly called authorities does not exist?
No,
they do not exist.
There's no person here like that.
Look at that
So
smile.
Again, you have not seen underage girls on your compound being married?
It's not a compound.
It's not a compound, it's our ranch and it's our home.
It's our home.
I want to play a bit of sound from a woman that we
Okay, we're gonna watch the rest of this short clip, but it is so unusual. Yeah, Doug says he can't see this. I think he's just listening. He says, but the speech patterns of the girls are unusual. They're unusual. The smiles are weird. If you could see this, Doug, the girl in the middle keeps doing, like, all of a sudden it's like her brain says smile, and she does this robotic Stepford wife smile at the most inappropriate times. There's another time you're going to see her do that smile. It's very strange. And oh, Doug says he can't see it because he's blind. Oh, well, we'll describe it for you, Doug. She's sort of like the smile just like creepily stretches across her face. And it's at weird times. So it's almost, it's almost the result of, if you can imagine being programmed to the point, being controlled to the point where the way that you dress, the way you style your hair, their hair is all exactly the same with a big poof in front and this specific kind of braid in the back. They all have these pastel dresses with these big poofy shoulders. Everything is controlled down to the way you dress. Your children are not even treated as your own. The cult leader can take them from one state to another and just say, well, they're going to go live here now. And then you go on national television with the outside world, and you're trying to like form your independent thoughts and say what you think. Like you're watching like the husk, I think, of a human being who just hasn't been able to be themselves in so many years. And somebody says it's unnerving. Yeah, it's unnerving. Here, I'm just going to play the last part for you.
We have talked to on a number of occasions. Her name is Carolyn Jessup. She too lived with you, and she said that she had to escape, and she wanted, if the chance to talk to you, this is what she wanted to say to you all.
I would just tell them, please cooperate with the authorities. These are some very serious allegations. You are at risk of losing your children. This is no joke. And, following orders or doing what you believe is your religious rights may end up in a situation that's not where you're going to want to be.
Ladies, do you understand that there are some people that feel that you don't have a choice?
By the way, look at that woman, Carolyn Jessup, who left the cult. Now, this is after she's been out of the cult for a while, and they bring her on to talk to these women. They know her. They know she's a runaway who left. And look at how articulate she is compared to them, having just been out of it for, I'm not sure how long she was out of it at this point, but even for a short while, coming back into yourself and being able to speak in complete sentences and without that high-pitched voice affect and this creepy smile. And it's just such a stark difference. Anyway.
You don't have the freedom to leave. You don't have the freedom to do some things. Is that not true?
We can leave anytime we would like
I feel
to
like
leave.
the most free woman in the whole world.
I too, and my freedom left me when I entered
The compound where
into
the
the
children
compound where they took
Where they
us with
took
our
our
children. That's where our choices ended.
What do you want people to, as you put it in the outside world, understand about your world?
We are
truth.
happy. Just the truth. We are free. We make our own choices.
And it's our whole life to raise our children, and they have taken our life from us. Our children are at risk, and we know that our children need us.
Our children are in great danger. They are very, very traumatized. They are very scared, and they are not safe.
Your anguish is quite genuine. Any mother separated from a child, but again, when your lifestyle is something that is very hard for many people to understand.
That's because it's not their lifestyle. You don't understand my thinking, and yet this is America. It is all our choice. And how I would like to raise my children, it is my choice. And for that to be taken from me and the choices of my children taken away, I don't just sit here and smile about it.
We are law-abiding citizens. We are American citizens. We love our children. We do not abuse our children. And we need our children returned. Our children are innocent. Our children are in great danger.
Nancy, Marie, Esther, I know tomorrow's a very important day, and we thank you very much for joining us this morning. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. So, yeah, somebody says, no, you don't have the freedom to harm your child. That's the difference, is they were pushing these 12 and 13-year-old girls, as young as 12 and 13, into marriage and sex with these old creepy men like Warren Jeffs, and they had no choice. There were some who escaped, who ran away. Meanwhile, because there was like, I think in the end, how many wives did Warren Jeffs have? I think he had over 50. I mean, it was something crazy. And he journaled about it. He was journaling about how God was sending him all these young girls, right? Like, that is not God, dude. But because they had these old guys and then he was in charge of the marriages. So he would dole out who got to marry who, if you get one of these young brides or not, because they had these old guys with lots of wives. They had a surplus of young men, of teenage men and young men. And so they started kicking them all out. And so there's this whole community of former FLDS, FDLS, I say it wrong, who, let's see, FLDS. There was this whole community of men that had been booted out and had just moved, like been homeless and moved to the surrounding towns because the only life they knew was in the compound, was in the cult. And then you occasionally had these young women who would escape, who would run away, knowing nothing, having only lived here. There were some of them interviewed for the documentary who said they didn't know who the president of the United States was. Like, nothing on the outside of the cult or the compound was important because they sort of lived by their own rules. So when you see these mothers up here saying, just because my lifestyle is different from your lifestyle, it actually reminds me of some of the stuff that we see going on now with postmodernism, where they're like, live and let live. Okay, I'm fine with live and let live up until you start harming people. And if you're pushing 12 and 13-year-olds to, whether it's to get married to and have sex with a creepy old prophet in your FLDS cult, or if it's indoctrinating 12 and 13-year-olds and younger in, all the way as young as kindergarten into gender ideology. I mean, I think both of those things are wrong. And I don't think you have the right to do that. No, you don't have the right through government schools to indoctrinate children and tell them that, we need to teach you about polyamory or about pansexuality or about being born in the wrong body. No, you don't need to teach kids about that. You don't need to indoctrinate other people's children in that way. So I think it is a form of grooming in both instances. Unfortunately, you can't say that on Twitter anymore, or you'll get permabanned, like James Lindsay. Yeah, some people were saying that clip made them sad. It is. It's very sad watching that. It's also very instructive. Yeah, creepy. Wow. It's creepy. It's instructive. I don't know. I like watching stuff like this because I just want to be aware of all the evil that humans are capable of, and all the different ways that it manifests and that it operates, and the ways that you get ordinary people to become complicit. Like that guy Warren Jeffs would never have been able to get away with all that he was able to get away with if he hadn't known how to manipulate all these normal people to be his enforcers and to come along with him. There were parents interviewed in the documentary who've since left FLDS. They were interviewed about how their kids were some of the kids taken in the middle of the night to Texas, to the compound, and they didn't do anything. And you watch that and you can see them struggling with it now that they're out of it. struggling with the fact that they just let it happen. And I don't know. I think we see this kind of phenomenon throughout history, whether on a massive scale or on a small scale with some small town sociopath that who manipulates and uses people in your little town. Like it's the same. It's a difference in scale. So let's see. Dom says, I do remember from the documentary, though, the FLDS members were very patriotic. Yeah, I think so. I'm trying to remember. They were, and they did fall back on that kind of like, we're American, so let us do this, right? They did try to cloak it in that patriotism. Surly Unicorn, I would imagine they were cult kids too. They lacked any understanding of healthy social cues. Yeah, a lot of them were raised in it from childhood. This cult, FLDS, it's still around. So even though Warren Jeffs is in prison, he still operates the cult from prison. He has some of his wives still go there and take notes and sit with him and then go back out and speak his will to the ones who are left. Like, it's still around. It didn't disband. That's how much power he had over these people. But he could still run it from behind prison bars. And people would still listen to him. I don't know. Laura says, sometimes it looks very benign. Yeah, like those women. How benign they looked. And so after they did this, after they went and did these media appearances, the government ended up releasing the kids back to the compound because the PR campaign was too negative. And I'm not saying I don't know what should have been done. But I am glad they eventually got enough evidence to prosecute him, at least one guy. Yeah. Okay. So today has been, what did somebody call it? This is a deprogrammed, untamed. No, deprogram off the chain. Deprogrammed. I forget what it's called, but yeah, my guest did not show up today. This is my fault. We had a miscommunication, and she thought the show was tomorrow. So we're going to be sitting with Sarah Higdon and Mike Harlow and possibly a few other people on Friday. It's going to be a fun show. Unplugged. Thanks, Dougley. I'm very bad with the words. No, this is Deprogrammed Unplugged. So we're just talking about what's on my mind. David Forrester. That was the creepiest line in that interview, I think, is when they say, "We are free." Like, I am the happiest woman ever. I'm so free. That just really sends chills down your spine. Here, I'll show you guys something else that I was looking at. I kind of want to, I don't know if you guys remember that, but when that interview came out, someone cut that interview up and made a house song out of it. There was like an electronic song where the chorus was, "We are free." It was sort of like that crazy. It sounds insane. It was insane. And so I had forgotten about that because it's so long ago until I watched this documentary. And then I went and looked at some of the interviews on my own. And, music sticks in your head even after all these years. I was like, oh, I remember this was a song. Somebody made this a song. Okay, I'm going to show you this. This is a news update. We will cover one news update. I don't only cover things from 20 years ago. This is a new article that is making the rounds on NBC News. The headline is "Sex Between Men, Not Skin Contact, is Fueling Monkeypox, New Research Suggests." And then the subheadline is "The claim that skin-to-skin contact during sex between men, not intercourse itself, drives most monkeypox transmission is likely backwards," a growing group of experts say. And so this is a piece from a few days ago, August 17th. I'll just read you just a little bit. Since the outset of the global monkeypox outbreak in May, public health and infectious disease experts have told the public that the virus is largely transmitting through skin-to-skin contact, in particular during sex between men. Now, however, an expanding cadre of experts has come to believe that sex between men itself, both anal as well as oral intercourse, is likely the main driver of global monkeypox transmission. The skin contact that comes with sex, these experts say, is probably much less of a risk factor. In recent weeks, a growing body of scientific evidence, including a trio of studies published in peer-reviewed journals, as well as reports from national, regional, and global health authorities, has suggested that experts may have framed monkeypox's typical transmission route previously backwards. Reconceiving the primary risk factors for transmission is crucial because of how it may affect guidance on reducing the risk of infection, including the question of whether demanding that people with the virus self-isolate has any substantial impact on transmission. So I'm actually just impressed that this news even came out as fast as it did. I figured they would continue to lie about this for a while and say, no, it's just, skin to skin, or it's just being in a crowd of people. And they've put it out there. Something you may not know, and I just heard this yesterday, is that there's a growing number of people who are saying that we need to rename monkeypox because it's offensive. Has anybody in the chat heard this? At first I thought this was a joke. It's not a joke. And I'm going to share this piece with you from The Atlantic. Now, this piece is actually saying it does not need to be renamed. And this writer, Benjamin Mazer, basically says, he knows people are going to be upset with him for writing this, but he doesn't think we need to rename it. He says calling the disease something different won't fix its bad vibes. But if you scroll down this section here, he's talking about all the reasons why it's a bad a bad name, reasons that people have given for why it needs to be renamed. And I wish I had highlighted this. Here it is. Okay. But a campaign to change the language of disease based on the urge to do something could be counterproductive. At worst, it could make semantics seem like the most important tool for addressing social change. The American Medical Association, for example, recently declared that, quote, a consideration of our language is central to the work of improving health equity. Do you see that? The AMA says that a consideration of our language is central to the work of improving health equity. No, it's not. This is social justice mumbo jumbo. First of all, you can tell it is because they got the word equity in there, not equality, equity. Equity necessarily means discriminatory. It means discrimination. It means discrimination on the basis of race and sex and sexuality and other factors. That's what that word means. They use equity because they are very concerned here. Consideration of language. They're very concerned about language. Equity means discrimination. So a consideration of our language is central to the work of improving our health discrimination. Like, you could just read it that way. That's what it means. Consideration of language, by the way, what they're talking about is changing words to be quote unquote less offensive. But really what they're doing when they change those words is they pick the words that are more useful to whatever ideology it is they're trying to push. So for example, the APA, the American Psychiatric Association, they renamed a lot of things within the section of the DSM on gender dysphoria. They renamed things, like instead of calling things your preferred gender, they changed it in the new edition to say your experienced gender. Why would they do that? Because they want to pretend like it's a fact. It's not a gender you prefer. It's a gender you experience, right? Like, no question there. You experience it, must be true. Experienced gender sounds much more like something that can't be changed. That's something that can't be questioned, than preferred gender. That's why they change words like this. It's manipulative. Just like a cult leader, it's manipulative. They control the way you talk about things. So they want to do the same thing with monkeypox. They've said alternately that it is racist. That's in here somewhere, which I'm like, wait, why is it racist? What are you talking about? What is... They don't ever explain anything like that. It's just meant for you to make connections in your head. But honestly, like, if you say that the word monkey is a racist word, like, I think you're the racist. Like, you're the only person thinking of it that way. So maybe just fix your head instead of instead of trying to pretend like that word is racist and keep it racist, or make other people think it's racist and make it off limits because now it's a racist word. Like, that's you. Why don't you fix you? Nobody else is looking at monkeypox and going, that's about Black people. Nobody else does that except for you woke crazy people. They've also said it's offensive to primates. That's in here. I'm not kidding. They cited that in some countries people have started killing monkeys now, and they condemn that, which I agree, it should be condemned. But they want to rename it in a hope to, not stigmatize monkeys. So I just thought this was a funny article. If you guys want to go and read it, I'll drop the link in the chat. Here it is. I've been told I'm wrong about this point many times and by many people. Osmudson, who wants the name to be changed, is appalled by my point of view. Some say the term is silly and that it makes a dreadful ailment seem unimportant. Others claim that it's too scary. Monkeypox? That it's too scary and causes panic we don't need. I've also heard that monkeypox is racist, that it's homophobic. What? And that actually, how is it homophobic? Same thing with racist. I don't get it. And that actually it's causing harm to monkeys. A single name for a disease is said to be somehow the source of all this evil, but medicine is full of terms that sound funny or disgusting or obscene. One can find hairy cell leukemia and fish scale disease and cat cry syndrome on the books. A common viral illness related to monkeypox is termed molluscum contagiosum, which seems like a Harry Potter curse. And then there's maple syrup urine disease. What? Much too sweet of a label for a debilitating condition. All these names are weird, but they hardly seem offensive. Why should monkeypox be different? You know why it should be different, Atlantic writer? Because it's 2022, and you guys have allowed social justice nut jobs to run everything, all the centers of power, including the Atlantic. So I'm surprised they even let you publish your piece disagreeing with them. They probably only did it so they could say, look, we let people who disagree with us publish once in a while. Like, it should be different because they want to change anything and everything that might be considered offensive these days. That's why. You're not in the 1990s anymore, Atlantic writer. Okay, stop sharing that. Anyway, that was just a silly thing that I saw. And like I said, when I first heard that, I thought, no, even me, I thought, no, that's a joke. That's a joke. They don't think they're offending monkeys, but there you go. People are pushing for it. This is totally a Phetasy. I don't know what that means, Sue, but if you're talking about Bridget Phetasy, I actually read her piece, her recent piece. I thought it was great. And I'm not going to read the whole thing now, but I'll drop the link to this in the chat also. I have reached out to Bridget. Bridget and I have been going back and forth for a couple of years now about interviewing one another, and then it never works out, but hopefully soon. I would love to talk with her. This piece is great. It's called I Regret Being a Slut. And here, I'll put it up. We're not going to read the whole thing, but if you guys want to see what I'm talking about, it's a personal essay. And she kind of goes through a lot of the same realizations that I think a lot of women who were raised during third wave feminism have gone through. Not everyone, I'm not speaking for everyone, but a lot of people. She's talking about this new book, The Case Against the Sexual Revolution, A New Guide to Sex in the 21st Century. And then she writes this very personal piece about all of the blackout drunk sex that she used to have, the sex that she's forgotten, the walks of shame, the men who didn't care about her, the meaningless sex that she told herself was empowered. And I think that it will resonate with a lot of women our age. So I definitely recommend that you read it. It's on her Substack, Bridget Phetasy. I Regret Being a Slut. And yeah, I would love to talk to her about that. Okay. You guys, thanks for hanging with me today on this unusual Kerfefe break. What else should we talk about? Otherwise, I'm gonna get back to working on this house without the AC. Oh, I will tell you something fun since this is just a silly one and we're hanging out. I did start a second gig job now, and this one I think it's going to be really fun. I get to help this guy make furniture, like really beautiful furniture. I would show you some of it, except I don't know how base this guy is yet, and I don't want to get, you know how the internet is. There are people who hate me, and I don't want them contacting this random furniture maker and be like, harassing him or whatever. I went over there. I started on Friday. I'm going over there this afternoon as well. And right now I'm just learning how to do the stains, like staining the wood, white oak. What was the other one? I think it was red oak. There were a couple of different ones we were doing. And I'm just learning the basics, like the very beginning of how to put the stain on, the difference between the water base and the oil base. But the furniture he makes is so beautiful. It's got a whole workshop full of all these different saws. At some point, I assume I'll get to use a saw. Should probably wait a little bit on that, but I'm really excited. So that's what I'm doing today. And then what kinds of side gigs have you done? I love gig jobs. Oh, you know what? There's somebody who's been asking me for a while now, Dom, on Twitter. I got to go and find his message so I can send this to him. He's been wanting me to talk about gig jobs. And he said, I know it may not be that interesting for some, but I'm older and I don't know how to get gig jobs, and I want to know more about the gig job economy. So I told him I would talk about that sometime. So I'll just talk about it now. What kind of side gigs have you done? I love gig jobs. Well, for anybody who wants, you can find just random, like one-off gig jobs on Craigslist sometimes. And there's so many funny gig jobs on Craigslist. One time I saw this guy that was offering, I think it was $25 for you to come over and shave his back hair because he had a date that night. I didn't do that one, but I thought that was hilarious. And then I thought, wouldn't it be great to do a documentary where you just go around filming yourself do all these random jobs, do it like Craigslist gig jobs, like start with the lady that needs you to come over and set up her kids' playground equipment, $50, set up this playground, and then you got to run across town and shave this guy's back for $25. I didn't do that one. But anyway, you can find some things on there. Just be a little more cautious on Craigslist and other places because there's also crazy people on there and there might be some weird catfishing scenario. So just exercise caution on Craigslist. The other things you can do are, if you like dogs and dog sitting, and if you work from home already primarily and you're going to be home, I use Rover.com. I haven't used it in a while because we're renovating, so I can't dog sit right now. But Rover.com, you can get the app and you set up a profile, you set up your prices. And this is if you like dogs, you can get different prices for having a dog stay with you all day while their parents are at work, right? Or then you have dog boarding where they can stay overnight with you while their parents are on vacation. That's mostly what I would do. That's why I always had so many dogs on the show, because I have a lot of repeat customers and they get to know you, you know their dogs, and their dog knows your dog. And, it's good. Tiger has a lot of good friends now. So depending on where you're at, some of the prices are crazy on Rover. There's one guy, when my old neighborhood, I was looking on Rover to see what the competitive prices were. When I first moved from Austin to Georgetown, and there was this guy and his prices were crazy high. Manny the dog walker. And there was like a picture. He looked all fit and he had a picture. He looked like the dog whisperer. He had two different leashes, multi-leashes with multi-dogs on it. And like his reviews were sort of like, Manny taught my dog Spanish. And I'm like, I can't compete with that guy. He's like, mine's like, just come hang out for the day. And, my profile is a little different. My prices weren't as high as his. But I'm just saying that because if you get really into that, you could make good money on it. He made good money on it, that guy. Probably the top Rover guy in our neighborhood. So Rover's one thing. If you like dog sitting, what else? Well, I see some people in the chat saying they've done DoorDash. I have not done DoorDash, but I know people who have. if you have a farmer's market near you, there are often vendors who need help. And so I worked for a while for one of the biggest farms in Austin. I worked at the farmer's market. And I can talk about that now because I don't work there anymore. And the farm fell apart. It's a crazy story what happened. But I used to sell the fruits and veggies on the weekends. And that was just outstanding because you get outside. It was during COVID. So people were not getting out as much as they used to, but you were getting to see people, and you were getting to see people who were really grateful they were outside and doing something, right? And and then also in a lot of these farmers market jobs, they give you product in addition to getting paid. So at the end of every Saturday, you'd come home with like just this bountiful harvest of fresh, organic, all kinds of vegetables. The dino kale was my favorite. All the different, like the golden beets and Swiss chard, and you could just pick. They'd be like, take a whole bag, whatever you want. And that was a great gig. And then I had a couple of housemates. I've always had friends live with me. So 2 of my friends who were living with me, one of them who still is, they were working at the farmer's market. Then one of them started working at the farm. You can even get a job on the farms if you live in so she was working at the farm. Then that farm fell apart. That's a crazy story. It was a JBG organic or backyard garden, Johnson's backyard garden. If you're in Austin, you probably heard that story. That farm fell apart. But then my friends started working at other farms, like jobs like at a dairy farm and a meat farm, like learning how to do different stuff. She's made jerky, pickles. There was a mushroom farmer that needed help. And the cool thing about these kind of gig jobs is you're really just getting them by meeting more and more people. Like if you get the one at the farm and then you meet other people, and if you're just good talking with people, you meet, you can find other opportunities. And as long as you're not full of yourself and like arrogant, like, oh, I'm too good for that, then you can learn like a lot of useful skills. I did have a friend whose ex-husband kept needing work, and he's an example of someone who was just like would back out at the last minute because it was like, oh, that's beneath me. There's nothing beneath you. Like that there's nothing, as long if you need to make money. Jordan Peterson talks about this. You can take a job like that requires a lot of physical grunt, or maybe it requires a good interaction with people, like a customer service job, being able to be good with people, and you can really do your best at it and master it instead of resenting being in it the whole time, and you can have fun with it. Another good gig job I did is I worked at a wine bar in my old town for a while, and that was a great job because I met so many people. If you move to a new town and you want to know how to meet people, get a job at a coffee shop or a wine bar or something like that, because then you're going to just meet all the locals. And so and learn. In that job, I learned a lot about wine. And, it was part-time, and you can kind of work these things around doing what else, like what I enjoyed doing, the podcast. Back when I was on my old channel, like that, I was still doing that job like every day. I worked at my friend's boot shop. I would just say, like, don't look at things and say, here's all the negatives. Like, look at the positives. This furniture job I have, I don't even know what it pays yet. I don't care. Like, I know it's going to be low, but I'm there to learn how to make furniture. Excuse me. How cool is that? Right. And you make money while you're doing it. Great. And you have something that gives you that flexibility where you can pursue other interests outside of that. Like in my case, doing Deprogrammed. So I don't know if that's helpful to the guy who wants to know about gig jobs. There are different ones with apps. Like you can do DoorDash. You can do the ones where you drive people around, like Lyft, or you can do those. You can do the dog sitting one. But a lot of times it really is like anything else, who and just meeting people. And then they tell you, hey, there's this gig or there's this thing. And sometimes it's like a one-day thing. Like, hey, can you work this? A couple times I've had a friend who, whenever Austin City Limits Festival is happening, she would say, hey, do you want to come work the festival for a couple days? And that was cool. I got to set up Paul McCartney's tent and see his fancy water. And then we kept polishing, my coworker and I were polishing his wine glasses. And he had this, his manager kept coming in. He had a lot of different managers. This one manager for the tent we were in kept coming in and being like, and putting the wine glasses up to the light, like, it's still too spotty. And we were like, do you really think Paul McCartney cares about this? Like, I didn't work this hard. I can't do his accent, but my friend was doing his accent. Like, I didn't work this hard in all the venues I've done just so I could have spotty wine glasses. But you do that kind of job. What is it? A couple days, get free tickets to the event, get to hear some music. Anyway, hope that helps. Nerdy girl. Oh my God, he was there. Did you get to meet him? No, I actually, because I'm an old person at heart, I left early. I should have stuck around, right? I didn't. Yeah, I did get to see him play. I just didn't want to stay that late till it was over. Oh, wow. Thank you for the super chat. Awesome. GJJ, that's the sweetest for your AC dealing with that also. Thank you, sir. $100. If I have one of those fancy sound machines like on Friday Night Tights, I'd go woohoo right now. Thank you very much. That's fantastic. And there's another one. Andrew Joyner for £5 says, highly recommend The Case Against the Sexual Revolution. Oh, that's that book. I am halfway through it. Louise Perry is an excellent writer. Awesome. I'm going to check that one out. I'll put that one on my list. From earlier, I highlighted this one back then. I think I'll still put it up. JFB 48. This is when we were watching the women FLDS cult. He says, imagine breaking down in the country and these folks showing up. Let me tell you something about breaking down. I said this to a friend yesterday. Because we're so distracted in this way that we live now with all these devices and shows and streams and, Twitter, your Twitter stream and your Facebook feed, and you've got all this information constantly coming at you. And we just live in a not very organic kind of way as humans today. And sometimes it's hard to read your gut, or let's say hard for some of us to, and I've tried to get better at this the past few years. One of the things that you can do when you're trying to suss out who is a good leader and who's not, and we were talking about earlier how there's con artists in every movement and people who are actual, like that word grifter, which I think just means con artists, people who speak the beliefs of others in an attempt to gain something like money or fame or power over people, right? Like Warren Jeffs. He spoke those beliefs of others very well, and he used them to gain power over all those people. So when you're sussing out if this person is a good leader or not, and sometimes it's easy to get distracted by the words they say, if they say a lot of the words you agree with. One thing I do is I like to imagine, what if society broke down and we're in this post-apocalyptic world and we're rebuilding? Whose community, like in the Walking Dead comic book or the Walking Dead TV show, whose community would I want to go live in? And then your gut will talk to you. And I had a realization a while back, like, oh, I would not want to live in that person's community at all. I thought I vibed with a lot of what they said. But when you start thinking about that, like a real world consequence, like living in having to rebuild society and try and reestablish our way of life, I very quickly was like, I would want to live in my pastor's community. That's who I trust. That's where your gut tells you. So this is a good jumping off point, because I did that yesterday. It was somebody else who's trying to position themselves as some kind of leader. And I was like, I was trying to imagine them if the world ever came to this cataclysmic decline, like, would I want to live in their community? No, it would be crazy. So anyway, try that exercise with the leader in your in your circles and see what you think. It's a good way of checking the gut. The knitters. I would live with the knitters. That's true. We would need lots of knitters to make. You guys would have to make all the blankets. Yeah. Judson, I'm just going to stay in my compound. Whatever you need people, Judson. Don't you need people? Pyrotovsky's here. Woohoo! Pirate Tomsky says, another super chat further up from Tweegirl. Oh, thank you, sir. I think I missed it. Oh, I don't see it. Is it starred? Let me see if I can find it. If you're still here, Pirate, and you can star it, I'll see if I can find it. Tweegirl, I did not mean to miss your super chat. Oh, there it is. Rename it to WFPOX. Is that the World Economic Forum? Keto and Crime says it came from monkeys. Good Lord. Keto and Crime, I can probably find 10 ways your comment is offensive to people. So there's a series. This is from a bad dude named Corn Pop. There's a series of books called Foxfire that would be great for Deprogrammed. I don't know why that sounds familiar, but I'll write that down and look it up. Cool. Okay, guys. Thanks for hanging out with me. I'm going to go get ready to make some furniture, hopefully stain some things. If you tuned in today, thanks for sticking around for the craziness. This was a very unusual, deprogrammed, unplugged, no guest, just talking off the cuff. Good experiment and good test for me to do that. And I really love you guys hanging out and giving me suggestions and not being opposed to watching old interview clips of polygamists from the 90s, which, you know, hot topic. I always joke about, you know, the shows that are really good at staying on current events and they ride the algorithm really well and they talk about the stuff everyone's interested in. And I just would never be able to do that because most of the time my clips I would be looking at stuff from 30 years ago, like breaking. Like my interest is breaking, but the story's not, you know. So anyway, thank you. Cheeky Mare was here. Thanks, Cheeky Mare. Okay, guys. Wednesday night, we've got an excellent show coming up. Me and Mystery Chris. I'm going to tease it now. So Wednesday night is our entertainment show and pop culture. It's at 8 o'clock Texas time, 8 o'clock Central. This Wednesday, we're going to be talking about blaxploitation films. So if you want to watch some of the movies we're watching, go and bug Mystery Chris on Twitter and ask him which ones he's watching. I forget which ones he's looking at, but here's the ones I'm watching. Cleopatra Jones, Coffee, and Foxy Brown, I think. Those three. So you don't have to watch them before we talk about them, but if you want to, those old ones from the 70s, go and find those. That's going to be fun. And then on Friday, Thursday, I have an interview coming up. I'm not sure who that one is yet. And then Friday is going to be just a fun Kerfefe break. We're going to have Sarah Higdon here. We're going to have Mike Harlow, possibly a couple other people, and just have like a big, fun Friday to move us into the weekend. And yeah, sign up on Locals if you want to be part of the book club. We're going to be reading Political Ponerology. If you guys want to get a copy of the book, it's been highly recommended by Nina Infinity and by Brentley and Daniel from the Dangerous Rhetoric. And it's got a foreword by Dr. Michael Rechtenwald. You can see my interview with him on this channel on Deprogrammed. He talks about how social justice and corporations work hand in hand. So that's what's coming up. Okay. Thanks, guys. Have a good week. Now the awkward part where I find the video. Okay, there we go.